demonic possession. A few years ago, there was an entity or a shadow person haunted my girlfriend's apartment, her mom's apartment, and a friend of ours across the parking lot's apartment. It would haunt all three places. At night, we would look across the parking lot and see a shadow figure standing in the window. We would call our neighbor on the phone, and she would check it out and see nothing in the window. But we still see it standing there. When it would haunt Jenny's apartment, my ex-girlfriend, it would be a flash of black across the wall like it was running from room to room. This was the time I was meditating a lot and trying to have an out-of-body experience. Eventually, I get my wish, twice, coming face to face with the demon, but that would be in another time. I tell you that experience of mine. I lived about 6 miles away from my girlfriend's apartment. Me and Jenny's attitudes were changing frequently, always arguing, obviously about making this creature stronger. It's at night time. Me and Jenny are in bed with her little toy poodle named Fancy sleeping. Next thing I know, I wake up and the back of my head and neck gets really stiff and start to vibrate and shake, and my head lift up without my control. Jenny feels this and she sees it. It frightens her and she just holds me and tells me it's going to be okay over and over until it stops. I hold her and tell her I'm okay. What are you doing? She says my head was shaking. I thought you were having a seizure. I told her no, everything is fine, go back to sleep. I knew everything was not at all right. I didn't know what that was. A few nights go by and I'm at my house on the phone with Jenny, and out of nowhere we start to argue again over nothing. I feel like this creature was purposely making us fight. But anyway, I get off the phone with her. Things changed for the worse here. The back of my head and neck started to get stiff and vibrate again uncontrollably. My head tilted to the side, all stiff, I can't control it. Next thing I know, my vision blurs and my eyesight gets pushed back like I zoom out into a deep tunnel. I see this black mist coming towards me. It goes inside of me and I can feel him, this creature, everywhere. But the worst part of it all is that I cannot control my body. I storm out of my house into the night. This thing controlling my body. I'm panicking on the inside. I know every intention this creature wants to do. It wants to go to Jenny's apartment and murder her, basically. It's pitch black outside. I live in a country. There's woods everywhere. This creature is forcing me to walk this road in the middle of the night towards my girlfriend's apartment. I can feel his thoughts, his emotion. It's horrible. Now what gets worse is that the entire time my body and us gets closer to her apartment, the more animal-ish he acts. I'm terrified. I am stuck inside my own body. He starts speaking in tongue, a language I have never heard before, while slobbering and spitting all over the place and growling out of my own mouth. Almost each car that passed by me slowed down close enough to see, then they will race down the road away from me, trying to get away. But their reaction is frightening me more. I believe those people also saw my eyes completely black and slobbering like a rabid dog. I am walking closer and closer to her place, trying to gain control over my body. It is not working. As I am walking down the road, I listen to him talk. It is not my voice, it's not a language on this earth. I'm panicking more and more because we are close about 200 yards from a place. I am begging for someone to help me. I walk past the cowboy church. Maybe Pastor Zach can help me if he sees me. I walk by the church, nobody is there. Another church about 50 more yards up ahead. On the left, people are there, it's open. I could hear them congregating and worshipping Jesus Christ. I know miracles in Jesus does exist, because the second I walk past the parking lot of the second church, I can feel this creature get ripped out of me. It takes all the air out of my lungs. I fall to the ground on my knees, gasping for air. I vomit. After I collect myself, I look around ahead and realize I was about 80 yards from Jenny's apartment. I start to cry, bawling my eyes out, almost puking again. I can't believe what almost happened. I can't believe I was possessed. I turn around and run the whole 6 miles back to my house crying. This is a true story, and it haunts me to this day. I never told Jenny, and I think I never will. Creepy ghost experience while home alone. Ever since I was a little girl, I knew my house was haunted. I've had quite a few unexplainable things happen in that house, but this one stood out to me the most. Last year I was home alone. Only my cat was in the house with me. I was in my bathroom when suddenly the door swings open. At first I thought it was my cat because she likes to follow me everywhere, and she knows how to push open doors, but no. I looked down the hallway to see my cat sitting at the very end of the hallway on a hamper. So was the nowhere she could have pushed the door open and get to the other side of the hallway within this time frame. Immediately after I looked down the hallway, a gust of wind passed my left ear. However, there was absolutely no windows open upstairs. There never is. So there's no way it could be in a draft. The AC wasn't on or anything. After the gust passed me, I felt my heart sing. Just that feeling that somebody or something was in my presence. There is no way it could have been something else, right? A scared 5 or 6 year old boy. In order to understand what happened, you first need to know that during this time I lived in an old Amish farmhouse that was split up to make it a duplex. It still had the barn and the cornfields and the apple orchard. We also had cherry trees both in front and in the back of the house. You'll see why I bring up the cherry trees in a minute. It was on the outskirts of Dover on Windy Creek Road. On this particular night, for whatever reason, I woke up and looked around my room, not because I was looking for something, but because I was awake and couldn't get back to sleep. I decided I was going to get off the top bunk. I have a brother. And was going to look out of my window, which faced the rear of the house and had a sight down our long driveway. Not that as a kid that it mattered. All I knew was I wanted to see how windy it was and watch the tree branches sway. I mustn't have been standing in that window for, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, watching all the trees around the place gets blown around by the wind. I don't know how windy it was, but I'd say at least 30 miles per hour, I guess. It was then that I caught sight of this thing, what I thought was a thing. It was deep purple and almost a glitter to it, but not quite. It was when I noticed that this cloak or cape had someone underneath of it, because I could see it holding onto the tree when it moved. Its head, a thin grim reaper where you can't see his face, and it looked directly at me. And for whatever reason, I stepped back. I don't know why I did. It's kind of like watching a train wreck. How you know you shouldn't look. How you know you should look away, but you can't. Well, here I am staring at this thing that clearly knew I was there. I guess I should add that my bedroom was on the second floor of the house. I don't know how long I stood there, having a staring contest with something supernatural, or what even. Then as quickly as it turns its head to watch me, it turns its head back to straight ahead, and then it let go of the tree and simply walked away down a driveway. This may not be supernatural, but something about that situation has made it stick with me 23 years later. What was it? Something I think about to this day. I was wondering if anyone had a similarly experience. Anyway, when I was 8-9 years old, my family lived in this old farmhouse just out of town. During the night, the farm was terrifying, and the rooms just would be pitch black, with not even the moon to illuminate the rooms. But eventually your eyes would adjust. My mom often talked about things that happened to her in the house and so on, but I never really paid attention. One night I was sleeping in probably the most darkest, coldest room in the house, which was my sister's room at the time, because we would often switch rooms to sleep in for fun, I guess. And I woke up abruptly, feeling a little uncomfortable. I scanned the room, and just as I look out in front of me, I see a clear silhouette of a man either hanging or standing on my bed railing. I slowly turned over, and sweat just pooled from my head, palm and feet. I had to make sure I was awake, so I pinched myself and looked back over, and sure enough, it was still there. The silhouette was long and slender and seemed to have been wearing a sort of coat. I could make out the legs, shoulders and head. It was darker than the room itself, and I turned over to look out the window under the curtains to see it was still very dark out. I think I stayed there frozen in absolute dread for what seemed like hours, trying to sleep and to ignore it. I never looked at it again. I kept my eyes screwed shut. Eventually, day broke and the room was a little lighter, so I looked back out and it was gone. Maybe it was my imagination. I was young, but the image is just so clear in my head, even now. And my other family members would talk about what would happen to them, but I kinda just blocked it out. I just didn't want to experience anything like it again, so I was ignorant. I never saw it again, and I developed a little phobia from darkness because of it. It really doesn't help when my cousin said she saw the same kind of thing later on. Mysterious humanoid figure. Okay, so the story I'm about to tell is 100% real. So basically, this took place 3 years ago in my old house. At this point in time, I was 13 years old and completely unconvinced about paranormal entities being real. For a little background, this story starts back just after we had moving into a new house. My dad had been offered a new job and it was a great offer, so we had to move to a new city. It was late in the evening and both my parents weren't at the house. My mom was meeting with some friends and my dad was on the evening shift at work, which meant I was home alone. It was probably at just around 7 when my mom left the house, leaving me alone. I didn't really mind though, because I was looking forward to having the house to myself and just having the chance to hang out and watch TV on the big screen in the living room. For a little insight, the living room is on the main floor of my house. I have both a basement and an upstairs. I was just hanging around and watching some Netflix show on the TV. I want to say maybe around 7:30ish, maybe a little later. I was just laying out on my couch, half asleep as you do. For some reason, due to me being half asleep, I heard a creak from upstairs. One you hear when some walking on hardwood flooring. Now, I have a dog and a cat, so normally this wouldn't strike odd for me. But this was an incredibly new house. It was built the year before we bought it, so it was very new. Everything was super sturdy and fresh, so the floors didn't creak. It was very new. Everything was super sturdy. But I just brushed it off, like it was my dog or something. This was probably at least half an hour later when I heard this weird click noise. I don't exactly know how to explain it. It was like the sound where you lock a door, but just louder. I couldn't even pinpoint where I had heard it from. It sounded like it came from upstairs and downstairs. At this point I got really paranoid, not because I thought there was a ghost, but because this was a new house and I didn't know it well at all. So I decided to help calm my nerves. I would get a FaceTime call with my friend. Nothing happened at all while I was on the call with them, but definitely made me feel better. I wasn't expecting both of my parents to be home earlier than at least 12. At this point, it was about probably 10ish. I was tired, so I decided to go upstairs and get ready for bed. I took a quick shower and did all the normal stuff you do to get ready, brushing your teeth, washing your face, etc. It only took me like 15 minutes, so I want to say it was only around 10:15. You're probably wondering why I keep bringing up the time. You'll figure it out later on this story. At this point, I was in bed, with no light in my room except the light from a window. I don't quite know how long I had been asleep, but I knew my parents was not home due to what happened later. When I woke up very suddenly, for some reason it felt like how you wake up from a nightmare. You know, like the whole gasp, jolt up head thing. I didn't have a nightmare at all. It was strange. I felt cold, but not the type of physical cold, like the inside cold when you feel your stomach thumps. I kind of just sat up and looked around my room, trying to calm myself down. This is crucial, so you know it wasn't sleeping paralysis or anything of that sort. After glancing around my room a bit, something caught my eye. I looked over to the farthest corner of my room and could almost make out some sort of figure. It was completely horrifying. It was almost human, but it wasn't. It was tall, like seriously tall, maybe 8 feet, but it didn't have a normal body. It was kind of skinny, but its arms were long enough to reach its knees. This is going to sound crazy, but the best way to describe it was almost like Slender Man, but shorter. I was so persistent that it wasn't paranormal, and maybe it was just something my clothes had made up. I don't know why I did what I did, but I laid down and tried to go back to sleep despite my dripping feeling of dread. But I couldn't sleep at all. I lay there forever. I didn't feel safe. But you just laid there. I don't know how long had passed, but I heard my dad's car pull into the driveway, making me feel safer. Curiosity was killing me, so I pulled my head from my covers to peek and see if it was still there, and it wasn't. The corner was empty, and I felt better now. Nothing much happened after this. I tried telling my parents, but they told me my mind was playing tricks. I swear to God though, I saw that thing, and it was real. I thought this would be the best place to share this. Maybe some people will believe me.